My name is David Miller, and 2 days before Christmas, the woman who cheated and abandoned me and our 3-year-old son 8 years ago stood on my porch with another man's child asking to be a family again. I smiled. The smile surprised her. It surprised me too. The porch light cast a yellow circle on the snow, and in that circle stood Karen, older now thinner in the face, holding a small boy by the hand. His breath came out in white puffs, quick and nervous. The wind slid through the gap beneath the door and rattled the loose storm window. Somewhere down the block, a church bell practiced a hymn, slow and off-key, the way it always sounds a few days before Christmas. David, she said, like the name was a warm coat she expected me to put back on. I know this is sudden. I kept smiling. Not because I was happy, because 8 years had taught me something about control. Behind me, the house smelled like old pine cleaner and coffee that had been reheated once too often. Ethan, my son, now 11, was upstairs pretending to read. I knew he was listening. He always listened when the past came knocking. Karen nodded toward the boy. "This is Noah," she said. "He's 6. The kid's jacket was too thin for an Iowa December, the zipper crooked. His cheeks were red from the cold. He looked at me the way kids do when they're trying to decide whether a grown-up is safe. I stepped aside. "Come in," I said, not to Karen, but to the boy. "It's cold." Karen hesitated, then crossed the threshold. Snowflakes clung to her hair and melted on the welcome mat. I took Noah's jacket, hung it on the peg by the door, and handed him a mug of cocoa I just poured for Ethan before the bell rang. His hands wrapped around it like it was a promise. Karen watched me, eyes flicking around the living room. Same couch, same bookshelf, same crooked picture of the Mississippi River I bought at a local art fair years ago. She took it all in like someone measuring square footage. "I didn't come for forgiveness," she said quickly. I came because this matters." I smiled again, a smaller smile this time. It mattered 8 years ago. Her mouth tightened. "I made mistakes." 8 years ago, 2 days before Christmas, she had packed a suitcase while I was at work at the credit union. I came home to an empty closet and a note on the counter written in a hurry. Ethan stood in the hallway holding his stuffed bear, asking why Mommy was mad at him. Outside, the neighbors' lights blinked red and green, cheerful and blind. I'd learned to live with the quiet after that. The kind of quiet that rings in your ears at night. The kind that makes you measure time in small victories, first full night. Ethan slept through first Christmas morning, without tears first day of school, where he didn't ask if she'd show up. Now Karen stood in my living room, snow melting into the rug, talking about second chances. "We can do this right," she said. "I know you. You're steady. You always were." Noah sipped, his cocoa eyes darting between us. I pulled a blanket from the chair and draped it over his shoulders. Karen reached out as if to touch my arm. I stepped back just enough. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. "Ethan's here," Karen said, her voice softening. "I'd like to see him." "That's not your call," I said, still calm. She swallowed. "I have rights, David." There it was, not love, not regret, paper words, legal words. 8 years ago, after she left, I learned the taste of numbers. Overtime hours, daycare bills, gas receipts. I sold my old Chevy to keep the lights on. Mrs. Dorothy Harlan from next door brought casseroles and watched Ethan when I worked late. "Storms pass," she told me once, patting my shoulder, "but kids remember who stayed." Karen hadn't stayed. She hadn't paid child support either. Not once. The court papers said abandonment, sole custody, black ink on white paper, heavy as truth. Now she was back, looking around like the house might still recognize her. "I just want to talk," she said. "For Christmas?" I glanced at the clock. 6:42 p.m. Ethan's bedtime routine started in 18 minutes. He liked it when things stayed on schedule. "Talk," I said. She told me about hard years and bad luck, about moving from place to place, about Noah's father being gone. She spoke quickly, like she was afraid I'd interrupt. When she mentioned God and fate, I smiled again faintly. I'd heard those words before from people who wanted something they hadn't earned. At one point, she said, "Ethan's doing well in baseball, right? Shortstop." The smile stayed, but something inside me went still. I hadn't told her that. I hadn't told anyone outside a small circle. She caught it to the shift. People talk," she said. The church bell stopped. The house settled. Noah finished his cocoa and set the mug down carefully, the way kids do when they don't want to break anything. Karen reached into her purse and slid a folded paper onto the coffee table. There are things we never finished, she said. Things that were ours. I didn't touch the paper. Upstairs, Ethan's door opened. He stood at the top of the stairs, older, now taller, braver. He looked down at Karen, then at the boy with the blanket. Dad, he said. I looked up at my son and felt the weight of 8 winters lift just a little. Yes, buddy, I said. I'm here. Karen watched us, hope flickering like a faulty bulb. I kept smiling because after 8 years, I finally understood something she didn't. This wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of the truth. The night Karen showed up, I slept in my chair outside Ethan's room. Not because I was afraid she'd sneak upstairs. She didn't know the house the way she once had, but because some habits never leave you. When someone walks out on you once you learn to guard the doors twice. My name is David Miller. I'm 56 years old and I live in Dubuque, Iowa, 3 blocks from the river, in a house that's paid for mostly in stubbornness and coffee. 8 years ago, 2 days before Christmas, Karen walked out while I was at work. I was a loan officer at Dutrack Community Credit Union, back then still am. I remember the exact moment I found out. I came home early because the roads were bad, snow thick and wet. Her car was gone. So was half the closet. Ethan was 3. He stood in the hallway holding his bear by one ear, staring at the open bedroom door like it might explain itself. Mommy mad, he asked. I told him no. I told him Mommy had to go on a trip. I told him a lot of things that night, all of them half true. Karen didn't answer her phone. Not that night, not the next morning. I spent Christmas Eve at the kitchen table with bills spread out like a losing hand. The radio played Johnny Cash singing something about home, and I turned it off because it felt like mockery. Christmas morning came anyway. Ethan tore wrapping paper with the kind of joy only kids have, the kind that doesn't yet know about absence. When he asked when Mommy would be home, I said soon because saying I don't know felt like giving up. Soon turned into weeks, weeks into months. I learned quickly how expensive loneliness can be. Daycare costs more when you're the only one paying. Overtime doesn't feel like overtime when it's the only way to keep the furnace running. I sold my Chevy because the transmission started slipping and I needed the cash more than the comfort of an old friend. Some nights dinner was Casey's Pizza and instant mashed potatoes. Some mornings I drank coffee that tasted like regret and went back to work anyway. The court paperwork came in a thick envelope, official and cold. Karen never showed, not once. The judge used words like abandonment and sole custody. I nodded because nodding was easier than crying in public. Child support was ordered. It never arrived. January 15th, $0. February 15th, $0. March 15th, $0. I kept a notebook back then, nothing fancy. Just dates and numbers. I didn't know why I was keeping it. I just knew it felt important to write the truth down somewhere. Mrs. Dorothy Harlan from next door noticed my porch light on late one night and knocked. She was 72, widowed, and had lived in that house since Nixon was president. You eating, she asked, holding a casserole dish like a shield. We ate together at the table. She told me storms pass. She told me kids remember who stays. She watched Ethan when my shifts ran late and never asked for anything in return. That's what people don't tell you about being left. You don't fall apart all at once. You fall apart in pieces quietly between responsibilities. You learn how to function on fumes. One afternoon, about 2 years, and a letter came in Karen's handwriting. I recognized it immediately. My hands shook opening it. She wrote that she was sorry, that she thought about Ethan every day, that she wasn't ready to come back but wanted me to know she regretted how she left. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I didn't show it to Ethan, not because I wanted revenge, but because I didn't want him waiting again. Guilt sat with me after that, still does sometimes. Years passed. Ethan grew taller, learned to ride a bike, started playing shortstop at school. I cheered from the bleachers and waved when he looked my way. He stopped asking about his mother, not all at once. Just gradually, the way kids stop asking for things they've learned won't come. Then Karen showed up again 8 years later, standing in my living room with another man's child wrapped in my blanket. The next morning, I took a personal day. I dropped Ethan off at school like always. We didn't talk much in the car. At lunch, I sat at the VFW post with Ray Pritchard, who'd known me since before my hair went gray. People don't come back for love, Ray said, sipping his beer. They come back for shelter. That afternoon, I called Megan Klein, a family law attorney downtown. Straight shooter. No nonsense. She's testing boundaries, Megan said after I told her everything. Let her talk. You just bring the facts. That night, Ethan asked me, Dad, is she staying? I looked at my son, really looked at him, at the boy who grew up without excuses. No, I said, not anymore. Outside, the wind rattled the windows. The house held. Karen thought she was knocking on a door that still belonged to her. What she didn't know was that the foundation had been poured without her, and it was solid. Karen stayed in town that week. I knew because Mrs. Dorothy told me she'd seen her car parked outside the Budget Motel near Highway 20, the one with the flickering vacancy sign and the ice machine that never works. People always think coming back is dramatic. Most of the time, it's just small and sad. My name is David Miller, and by the third night after she returned, I understood exactly why she was here. She called me just after dinner. I was rinsing plates, listening to the hum of the dishwasher and the low whistle of wind pushing snow against the siding. Can we talk, she asked, somewhere neutral. Neutral, I learned over the years, usually means public. We met at the Hy-Vee Cafe off Dodge Street. Same smell of coffee and fryer oil it's had forever. Same linoleum floors. She sat across from me, hands folded tight around a paper cup. Noah was with a babysitter, she said. I believed her. The kid deserved warmth and cartoons, not adult conversations that circled like vultures. Karen started with apologies. They came out practiced like she'd said them in the mirror. I was selfish. I panicked. I ruined everything. I listened. I always listen. It's how I learned to survive meetings and courtrooms. Then the real ask arrived, wrapped in softer words. I don't have stability, she said. No address that sticks. Schools won't enroll Noah without one. I need a place. A real place. You need my address, I said. She flinched, then nodded. I need what you have. There it was, shelter, leverage. She talked about Noah's father being gone, about bills piling up, about starting over. She didn't say the words money or house, but they hovered between us like steam. I know Ethan's doing well, she added too quickly. Baseball, shortstop. I looked at her over the rim of my mug. The coffee had gone cold. That's right, I said. He is. Her eyes dropped. People talk. Later, I'd replay that line. People talk. In a town like this, people always do. But some details don't travel unless you're listening closely. She reached across the table and touched my hand. I pulled it back and stood. We're done here, I said. That night, Ethan sat on the couch with his homework spread out, pretending not to watch me. He asked about Noah. That surprised me. Is he nice? Ethan asked. Yes, I said. He's a good kid. Ethan nodded. It's not his fault. No, it wasn't. That was the hardest part. The next day, Karen showed up again. This time, she brought a folder. We stood on the porch. Snow creaked under our boots. I found something, she said, tapping the folder. Old paperwork. Things we never finished. Put it away, I said. She didn't. She slid out a photocopy, an old bank statement from when we were married, yellowed and irrelevant. But she said it like it was a weapon. You never divided everything, she said. I could talk to a lawyer. I smiled then. The second smile. The one that comes when you recognize a pattern. Do what you need to do, I said. Her voice cracked. You think I don't feel bad? You think I don't pray about this? I looked past her at the river in the distance, gray and steady. Prayer doesn't replace responsibility, I said. She left angry that time, tires spinning on slush. That evening, Ethan asked me a question that sat heavy in my chest. Dad, if she comes back, will I have to share my room again? I sat beside him and put my arm around his shoulders. He leaned in without thinking. No, I said, you won't. Later, after he went to bed, I pulled out the old notebook. Dates, numbers. Zeros stacked like snowdrifts. I added one more note at the bottom. She's not here for forgiveness. I called Megan Klein the next morning. She's hinting at reopening things, I said. Custody, property. Megan didn't sound surprised. Let her, she said. Truth does better in daylight. I hung up and stared out the window. The porch light was off now. The house felt settled, like it knew where it stood. Karen thought she was coming back to a negotiation. What she didn't realize was that I'd already paid the price. All that was left was the reckoning. I didn't sleep much after that, not because I was afraid of Karen, but because I was afraid of myself, of the part of me that still remembered the woman she used to be. My name is David Miller, and when you've been steady for 8 years, people assume the hard part is over. They're wrong. The hard part comes when the past tries to move back in and asks you to make room. The morning after Karen waved that old bank statement on my porch, I took a sick day. I dropped Ethan at school like always. Same routine, same goodbye. He slammed the car door and jogged toward the building, backpack bouncing. I waited until he disappeared inside before I let my hands rest on the steering wheel a second longer than usual. I drove downtown to the VFW post on Locust Street. It was early quiet, the kind of quiet that smells like floor cleaner and old coffee. Ray Pritchard was already there, sitting at the bar with his back straight, staring into a mug like it was telling him secrets. "You look like a man thinking too much," he said without turning. I said, taking the stool beside him. Ray had known me since before Karen. He'd watched Ethan grow up in snapshots and short conversations. He listened while I talked. When I finished, he nodded once. "People who left don't come back to apologize," he said. "They come back to collect." "What if part of me wants to forgive?" I asked. Ray finally looked at me. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it sure as hell doesn't mean letting someone move the furniture back in. That afternoon, I met Megan Klein in her office above a dentist's practice. The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and burnt coffee. Megan didn't waste time. "She abandoned the child," she said, flipping through my paperwork. 8 years, no support, no visitation. She has no standing to just come back, but she can make noise. "She already is," I said. "Good," Megan said. "Noise attracts witnesses." She explained mediation, how public settings cool bad behavior, how numbers don't argue, how the truth presented calmly does most of the work. "You don't need revenge," she said. "You need boundaries." That night I dreamed of our old kitchen. Karen stood at the stove humming, wearing one of my shirts. Ethan was small again, laughing. For a moment everything felt right. Then I woke up. The house was dark. The heater clicked on. I lay there staring at the ceiling, anger rising, not at Karen, but at myself for missing something that no longer existed. I got up and checked on Ethan. He slept sprawled sideways, one foot hanging off the bed. I pulled the blanket up and stood there a minute, breathing him in, reminding myself why I'd stayed. The plan came together quietly. No traps, no shouting, just facts lined up like fence posts. Megan set up a mediation at the VFW Hall neutral ground community space. Karen agreed faster than I expected. I think she believed confidence would carry her. The day before the meeting, Karen came by again. This time, Noah was with her. The wind cut sharp and the kid's nose was red. "Can he warm up?" she asked. I nodded. I gave Noah cocoa and set him at the table with crayons Ethan didn't use anymore. Karen hovered, eyes soft, voice low. "You don't have to do this," she said. "We could handle it privately." I smiled, the third kind, the one that understands temptation. "This is private," I said, "just not secret." She reached for my hand again. I stepped past her and handed Noah a cookie. That night, Ethan asked, "Dad, if she comes back, will everything change?" I sat beside him on the couch. "No," I said, "some things don't change, they grow." He nodded, satisfied. Outside the porch, light glowed steady against the snow. I laid out the folder on the table after Ethan went to bed. Court orders, payment records, my old notebook, 8 years of zeros. I didn't feel angry, I felt ready. Karen thought the meeting would be about feelings. I knew it would be about facts. The VFW hall smelled like old wood, black coffee, and winter coats that had seen too many Iowa Januaries. Flags lined the walls. Folding chairs were set up in uneven rows the way they always are when a place is meant for fish fries and funerals not reckoning. My name is David Miller, and by the time I walked into that room, I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm. Calm is what comes after you've already survived the worst things someone can do to you. Karen arrived 10 minutes late. She always had. She wore a dark coat and a careful expression, the kind people practice in mirrors. Noah wasn't with her. I was grateful for that. Megan Klein sat beside me, legal pad open, pen ready. Ray was in the back, arms crossed. Mrs. Dorothy sat near the aisle purse in her lap, eyes sharp as ever. A mediator from the county adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. "We're here to discuss family matters," he said. "Let's keep this respectful." Karen nodded quickly. "Of course." She started talking right away. About growth, about mistakes, about how people change. Her voice rose and fell faster as she went, tears appearing on cue. She talked about Christmas, about forgiveness, about how children need both parents. I waited. When she paused to breathe, I stood. "I'll be brief," I said. The room quieted. Even the old heater seemed to hold its breath. 8 years ago, I said, 2 days before Christmas, Karen left our son and me. She did not return. She did not call. She did not provide support. Karen shook her head. "That's not fair." I kept going, my voice even. "January 15th, year one," I said. "Child support paid $0. February 15th, $0. March 15th, $0. I didn't rush. I let the numbers land. I read through the months, the years, page after page, zeros stacked like snowfall. Karen's breathing got louder. "I didn't have money," she said. "You know that." "I know you didn't send any," I said. The mediator leaned forward. Megan slid the court order across the table. Sole custody, abandonment, official stamps, ink that doesn't care about feelings. Karen's voice rose. "I was young. I was scared. I made mistakes." "So did I said. I stayed." There was a murmur in the room, not loud, just acknowledgement. Karen tried one last turn. "Ethan deserves his mother." At that, the side door opened. Ethan stepped in, backpack on shoulders squared. He'd insisted on coming. Megan and I had agreed only if he spoke once, and only if he wanted to. He looked at Karen, really looked at her. "Were you the one who made my dad cry that Christmas?" he asked. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Karen's mouth opened. No sound came out. The mediator cleared his throat again. "Based on the record, he said there is no standing to reopen custody at this time. There is, however, a significant arrears in child support." Megan nodded. "We'll be pursuing full recovery." Karen sat back deflated. The performance was over. No applause. I didn't smile then. I didn't need to. As we stood to leave, Karen whispered, "I watched you. I knew you'd be fine without me." I turned once. "We weren't," I said. "We just got better." Outside, the cold hit clean and sharp. Ethan walked beside me, quiet but steady. The flags above the hall snapped in the wind. Justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just states the truth and lets the silence do the rest. The snow was falling harder that night, the kind that quiets everything it touches. Big flakes drifted under the porch light and disappeared when they hit the steps like they'd made a decision and were done with it. My name is David Miller, and for the first time in 8 years, I knew exactly where the past belonged. Karen stood on the porch one last time. No folder, no speech. Just her and the cold. The wind pushed at her coat and she pulled it tighter the way people do when they finally realize there's nothing left to hold on to. "I didn't think it would end like this," she said. "It didn't end today," I said. "It ended a long time ago." She looked past me into the house. The lamp was on. The walls were warm with light. Somewhere upstairs, Ethan was brushing his teeth, humming off key. Ordinary sounds. Sacred sounds. "I just wanted the house back," she said. I nodded. "That's the problem. You wanted the house. You walked away from the home." For a moment, her eyes filled. Maybe it was real. Maybe it wasn't. At my age, I've learned the difference doesn't always matter. What matters is what you do next. "I'm sorry," she said quietly this time. I believe that she was sorry for herself, and that was enough honesty for one night. I smiled then, the last smile, not bitter, not guarded, peaceful. "I hope you figure things out," I said, "but not here." I closed the door, not hard, not soft, just firm. The lock clicked, solid, final. A year passed. The next Christmas, our church hall was loud with laughter and the clatter of aluminum pans. Mrs. Dorothy's casserole disappeared in 10 minutes. Ray wore a ridiculous sweater and pretended not to enjoy it. Ethan helped decorate a crooked tree and complained about the lights like it was his job. Outside, snow fell the same way it always does in Iowa, steady, honest, unavoidable. Karen never came back. The legal process did its work. Child support arrears were collected slowly, officially, without drama. Responsibility, not revenge. That was enough. Ethan grew taller, stronger. He stopped looking over his shoulder. And me, I learned something I wish I'd known sooner. Some doors aren't meant to be reopened. Not because you're angry, but because you've already built something better on the other side. If this story reminded you of a door you once stood in front of, or one you're standing in front of now, take a moment. Think about what you've survived. Think about who stayed. And if you feel like it, share your story or pass this one along to someone who might need it. Sometimes knowing you're not alone is the strongest gift there is. Thank you for listening.